Are you covering all of your expenses in your prices? At the end of the day, when you make a sale, are you covering all of your trips to the post office, as well as all of those other little things that go into your time and energy that you spend on your products? Well, in this episode of The Jam, we're going to take a look at cost plus pricing, which is one way that you can make sure you're accounting for these things. What is up? Welcome to The Jam. I am Gordon from Marmalade.
I'm Richie from Marmalade.
And you have just joined us in the middle of a 3-part series on pricing. So in the first episode, we talked about market-based pricing, and if you haven't checked that one out, you should probably do that first. This is episode 2, and we're talking about cost plus pricing. Then in episode 3, we're going to compare and contrast the two of those against one another.
I guess you want me to introduce what cost plus pricing is. All right, so let's dive into what cost plus pricing is. And that is figuring out what it costs to make your product, tacking on a profit margin, and boom, there's your price. It is the simplest way to price your products. However, as we know, simplest is not always the best. There are advantages and disadvantages to it like everything else. So let's dive into some pros and cons of cost plus pricing.
Yeah, so the first pro is that you're going to have a very good handle on what your product costs are, and you'll be able to set a profit point that you're happy with for selling that product.
And that is a great starting point, right? So don't sell yourself short and make sure that you're actually making money, not losing money. That is a heartache that you find out later if you don't have a good control of your costs. You find out months into it and you're like, wait a minute, the bank account's getting smaller, not bigger. Something's wrong here.
That's why math is important.
Math is important. Next pro is it's really easy. You run some numbers real quick, throw in a profit, and again, boom, you have a price. You didn't have to do a whole lot aside from figure out what it actually cost. You buy 100 widgets to go into it, use 4 of them, and you know that 4% of whatever it cost you for those 100 widgets actually goes into your product price. You add that up in a spreadsheet, and boom, you have a price.
Another pro is that it is such a popular way of doing pricing that there's a chance that your entire market may be made up of competitors that are using cost plus to calculate their prices, and that you could end up in that spot anyway, even if you were doing market-based research for your pricing.
Right. But you won't know that unless you do market-based research. But again, yeah, it's so common because it's so darn easy. So also it works well in a market that's super new. If you're saying, hey, I'm kind of creating this market. There's nothing really in this market. No one really does it like this. Okay, well, this is probably a great starting point for you because in your market research, you're not going to have a lot to bounce off of. Now, I definitely suggest that, you do your cost plus pricing because it's super new. It's going to give you a great starting point. I'd still kind of bounce it off of some things, right? Even if it's different, okay, this market over here is a little bit lower. This one's a little bit higher. I think this fits, but, cost plus is great start. You're not selling yourself short. You're not going too high. Things could be good. I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in to The Jam by Marmalade. Marmalade helps guide you to keywords that real Etsy shoppers are using so you can get more sales doing what you love. Check out Marmalade in the link in the description or at marmalead.com.
So those are some pros for cost plus pricing, but there are some cons. There are definitely some cons, and so we're going to run through those too. The first con, you might be underpricing your products, and that's a pretty huge con.
Yeah, you don't want to be getting less than you would with market pricing. I mean, like you go to a job interview and they're like, and how much would you like? And you're like, I would like this much. And they're like, I'll take it, right? It was like, that was too easy. Darn it, I could have asked for more. You don't want to be in that position with your products. And as we mentioned in previous video, whenever we're talking about product positioning, right? If you charge too little, like they think that you're a lower quality product instead of a higher quality product.
Another con is that you might do the research around this and find out that your costs are higher than what the market is willing to pay. You end up calculating what your price should be, and you end up way up here, which you don't know because you haven't done the market research yet. You start selling it on Etsy and people aren't willing to pay that. And so you're not getting sales, but you have no idea why.
Right. You might think there's just not a market for that product on Etsy and wrongly think that, but really it's a matter of your pricing. Add a little bit of different pricing wise and you might be selling a lot.
Kind of hand in hand with that, another con is that you are missing out on the ability to position your product relative to other ones in your market. Now, what do we mean by that? We mean that you are missing out on the ability of saying, I'm trying to sell a bargain level product. I want to be lower than the average market cost, or I want to be right in line, or I want to be a premium product. So if you went ahead and calculated your costs, added in what profit you wanted to make, and listed your product as a premium product, that just kind of happened. You missed out on the ability to understand that that's what you were doing. Yet if you knew that that's what you were doing, you would be able to adjust for that and say, look, I'm selling a premium product. Means I need to mention that in my description and tell people why my product is better than other ones. I need to invest in photos to make sure I knock those things out of the park. And I'm really setting myself up as a premium solution for shoppers who are looking for that.
It's kind of addressing those objections up front, right? Why is this more money? Why does it cost this? And you substantiate that, and then people don't have to wonder that. I mean, they're going to be wondering that mentally, but you're answering it as they go through. They don't have to either bounce from your listing or send you a message and be like, hey, what's the deal? Why you cost more? Because not many people are going to do that. Another con is that as you grow and benefit from scale, such as volume discounts, right? So like I said, you're buying more, you're buying bigger quantities, getting bigger discounts for doing that. And you're making improvements in your production speed and just overall lowering your overhead per item. Based with Cost Plus, you'd be lowering your prices, right? Because it's your cost plus a profit margin. So as you improve, you're actually lowering your prices. And if your profit margin's a percentage, you're actually making less money too, because it's all scaling down with you, which doesn't make a lot of sense. The whole purpose of improving things and your efficiency is to increase your profit margin, not reduce it.
And another con for doing cost plus pricing is that it's really, really hard to account for all of your expenses that you're incurring when you're creating your product. Yes, it's easy to look at materials and add those things up, but there's so much more that goes into it than that. Obviously, there's your time that you spend on things. There's trips back and forth to the post office for shipping things. If you're using any kind of like a printer or a cutter or electronic device, there's electricity costs associated with that. And like in the previous thing that Richie was talking about, as you scale up, those little tiny costs that are nickel and diming you here and there are going to amount to more and more. And so you're putting yourself at risk for underpricing because you're not accounting for all of your true costs.
Absolutely. Trips to the post office, all these different things that you're doing. I mean, you could spend so much time tracking your costs that in itself becomes a cost, right? Like track the cost of tracking your cost. It could get nuts. It could just get nuts. So careful with that. The final con from our list is that you may over account for your costs and price yourself out of the market. Because like I said, you can go nuts with it. You can either underestimate your costs or you can overestimate your costs. Because now all of a sudden you're factoring in, well, the post office line was kind of long today, so I was there a little extra time, and like I'm going to start factoring that in now too. Next thing you know, you've padded up these costs and your profit, and you're just way out of the market. And you're like, man, why does it cost me so much? How are these people making this for less than me? They're making like 50 cents an hour. And it's like, well, no, you're just over accounting for your costs here.
So there you guys go. There's a good overview of what cost plus pricing is. There's a good chance you might already be using that on your listings without even potentially realizing that that's how you're doing your costs, or that there's a whole nother school of thought on this. The obvious question is, which of these two is better? Does it make more sense to do market-based pricing, or does it make more sense to do cost plus, or maybe even some crazy combination of the two? And if so, what does that look like? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about next time on The Jam, is comparing these two methods. So if you haven't checked out how to do market-based pricing yet, you definitely want to do that before the next episode drops. But we will see you guys next time on The Jam.